Remember, Dylan, one of the examples of discipline that Lewis and Clark had to show along the journey. One of them happened before they even left. Go ahead.
And getting drunk.
Okay, well, remember, several men were confined to their quarters because they had visited a grog or rum store prior to departure, and they didn't want them all drunk up for the journey. Zay, give me another example of discipline that was used.
One guy got 100 lashes and was sent down back down river.
Yeah, one of the men received 100 lashes with a whip and sent down river for disciplinary reasons. And we mentioned the other one, John Newman and Moses Reed, were court-martialed and sent back for mutiny and desertion. Okay? Okay, now we're going to start our journey. And I'll tell you when to get your map out so you can follow that too, but we're not quite there yet. Okay? So I told you yesterday, if I remember correctly, that at 4 p.m. on May 14th, 1804, the Corps of Discovery departed from the mouth of the Missouri River near present-day St. Louis, Missouri, right? And we explained to you that a mouth of the river is where a river runs in, a smaller river runs into a bigger river. So it's the Missouri River running into the Mississippi. That area is the mouth, okay? And they left there on May 14th, 1804. Now, I want you to think about this. Is this going to be easy, William? Because are they going to be traveling? Here we go. They're coming right in here. Are they going to be? They're going to be traveling this route here and eventually here and whatever. Blah 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 blah. Which way are they going on the river? Upstream or downstream? They're going upstream. Okay, so it's going to take them way longer to get to the Pacific than it is to get back, because the first part of the journey, when they go up the Mississippi River here, they are going upstream. Okay, they're paddling upstream, so to speak. And a majority of the expedition, it's not until they get clear over here, they're going to take this route like this, and they're going to get clear over here before all of a sudden they get to go downstream. Why all of a sudden do they get to go downstream? And why is it flowing the other way? What imaginary line makes the difference, or what is it called? It's a mountain. The mountains makes the difference. It's called the Continental Divide. And the Continental Divide is an imaginary line that runs all the way through the Rocky Mountains. And everything on the east side of the Continental Divide, rivers run this way. Everything on the west side of the Continental Divide, rivers run this way. Now there is actually at Glacier Park something called Triple Divide Peak. It's a mountain peak in the Rocky Mountains in which it either runs east, west, or north. And it goes to the Arctic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, or the Atlantic Ocean. And there's a peak up there that when it rains or snows, if that snow falls from me to Jordan, it could end up in a completely different ocean when it melts because of the way the peak is sloped on the Continental Divide. So in this particular instance, they're going to be paddling upstream most of the way. When they get to here, the Continental Divide goes through this part of Montana, and when they make their trek and go to the Pacific Ocean, they're finally going to be downstream. Thus, on the way back, they're going to be upstream for a period of time, but most of the trip back is going to be downstream, and you'll find out they get back a lot quicker than they got there because of that. Okay, just so you know, the Continental Divide, which is on your ID sheet, is simply an imaginary line that separates the way way rivers travel. Okay? So, they start on May 14th, 1804 from St. Louis, Missouri. They're traveling upstream, and they travel for about 3 months. And on August 20th, 1804, Sergeant Charles Floyd Jr. dies on the expedition. It's on your ID sheet. So after traveling for approximately 3 months up the Missouri River, Sergeant Charles Floyd Jr. dies on the expedition on August 20th, 1804. Dies. Now, Kobe Tigner would relate to this pretty well, because Kobe Tigner... The other way.
Do you have the keys for the Dodge?
Kobe Tigner can relate to this because he had an issue with this not too long ago. Does anybody know what, anybody hear what Kobe Tigner's issue was a couple weeks ago, maybe more? Yeah, his appendix almost burst. Now your appendix is a little tiny part of your intestine that if it bursts, it puts peritonitis or poison into your system and it will kill you. Well, poor old Charles Floyd Jr. back in 1804 had his appendix burst and died. And died of internal poisoning. Okay? Now, nowadays we have surgery and they take care of that thing. And anybody know what the symptoms are of appendicitis?
A lot of abdominal pain.
Horrible abdominal pain. Not like, you know, not like acid or not like gas. It's just a horrible pain in your side. I actually had my appendix out, believe it or not, on the day man landed on the moon in 1969. It's very common, but deadly if you don't get it taken care of. Okay? So, after traveling for approximately 3 months, Sergeant Charles Floyd Jr. dies on the expedition on August 20th, 1804. He dies as a result of a burst appendix. And believe it or not, you think about all the dangers of going out here not knowing anything. He's the only fatality of the entire expedition to the Pacific and back. Only fatality. That's incredible.
That was like a natural cause.
Yeah, natural cause. They compare this journey to being when man went to the moon in 1969, the dangers. It was equal a feat, equal as difficult as getting a man to the moon and returning them safely to Earth in 1969. That's what they compare this to. So he's the only fatality of the entire expedition. Well, not too long after Floyd died, the expedition ran into some serious trouble. Trouble that could have kept him from ever getting to the Pacific Ocean. What do you think that trouble was? Indians. They encountered the Teton Sioux Indians, which is on your ID sheet. So not long after Sergeant Floyd's death of a burst appendix, the expedition ran into some serious trouble when they ran into the Teton Sioux Indians. And without things working out for them in this endeavor, they may have not only not survived, but certainly would have never gotten to the Pacific Ocean. So they run into a very hostile Indian tribe known as the Teton Sioux Indians. And they were very possessive. They controlled a specific sector of the Missouri River that the expedition was traveling. And they come face to face with these Teton Indians, and a wrong move on either side is going to result in disaster for the Corps of Discovery. So the Corps of Discovery encounters the Teton Sioux Indians who controlled a specific sector of the Missouri River that the expedition was traveling. And as the expedition becomes face to face with these hostile Indians, a wrong move on either side could doom the entire expedition. Well, after a pretty tense time, Sioux Chief Black Buffalo waved his braves off and allowed the expedition to continue their journey. So Lewis and Clark did a good job of negotiating with a pretty hostile Indian tribe and their leader, Black Buffalo, somehow convincing him to allow the expedition to pass through their specific lands. Okay? So, finally, Sioux Chief Black Buffalo waved his men off, his braves off, and allowed the expedition to continue their journey. Just kind of blind luck, actually. Something was said that made sense to somebody, and he allowed them to continue, because that was probably shouldn't have been the case. Well, the expedition travels about 1,600 more miles, and on October 24th of 1804, they settle in for the winter at the Mandan villages. So the expedition then travels approximately 1,600 miles, and on October 24th of 1804, they settle in for the winter at the Mandan villages. You'll see that they will not travel in the winter. That would be suicidal, very difficult. So the expedition travels from meeting the Teton Sioux Indians approximately 1,600 miles, and on October 24th of 1804, they settle in for the winter at the Mandan villages. What are the Mandan villages? Anybody know what the Mandan villages are? They're villages that the Mandan Indians live at. Okay, and they evidently were not hostile, they were friendly. Matter of fact, there were about 4,000 Mandan Indians that were in the Mandan villages, which is located near present-day Mandan, North Dakota. Okay, very good. So, again, the expedition travels about 1,600 miles, and on October 24th of 1804, they settled for the winter at the Mandan villages. The Mandan villages had a population of about 4,000 Mandan Indians, and was located near present-day Mandan, North Dakota. Now, you ever been to North Dakota? You ever been to Mandan, North Dakota in the winter? You ever been there? Brutal. Brutal. The expedition spent about 5 months at the villages because winter is long in North Dakota. And the temperatures dropped as low as 45 degrees below zero during the time they stayed there. So they were there longer than you might anticipate because of the weather. So the expedition spends the next 5 months at the Mandan villages, and they encounter bone-chilling cold with temperatures dropping at times to 45 degrees below zero. So it was not the place you would normally winter. If you're going to winter, Arizona would be a good place, not the Mandan villages. Just keep that in mind. If you get older and want to retire someday, Mandan, North Dakota would probably not be the place to go. Well, during those 5 months, they are looking to hire a guide for the expedition. And after searching for a period of time, they hire a French-Canadian fur trader as their guide. His name is Toussaint Charbonneau. Toussaint Charbonneau. So during the winter, Lewis and Clark are looking for a guide to guide them on their way to the Pacific after they leave the Mandan villages, and they finally hire a French-Canadian fur trader by the name of Toussaint Charbonneau. Toussaint Charbonneau will be hired by the Lewis and Clark expedition. Toussaint Charbonneau. It's on your ID sheet. Okay, always should have that in front of you. It makes it so much easier. Toussaint Charbonneau. Now, what else might they need besides a guide? Because they're probably going to run into other Indian tribes that do not speak their language.
Translator.
Our interpreters, what they're going to call it. And so they're also looking for an interpreter. They want the services of an Indian interpreter to communicate with any Indian tribes that would encounter along their journey. Now, this Toussaint Charbonneau actually had 2 wives at the time. And so Lewis and Clark said, pick one to be our interpreter and the other one stay in here. They didn't want to take both his wives. So Toussaint Charbonneau is going to be forced to pick a wife, take that wife with him on the expedition as an interpreter, and leave the other one behind at the Mandan villages, which he would reunite with her when he got back. Well, the wife that he chooses is Sacagawea, or Sacagawea, depending on your version. I like to say Sacagawea. He chose Sacagawea, who was at the time, which wasn't unusual before you go crazy, at the time was 16 years old and pregnant. That was not unusual at that time. So Charbonneau chooses one of his wives, Sacagawea, to go on the expedition. She is 16 years old at the time and pregnant. Well, thank goodness for timing. Prior to their departure, on February 11th, 1805, Sacagawea gives birth to this young man, a son, and he was given the Christian name Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, which is on your ID sheet. So, prior to their departure, on February 11th, 1805, Sacagawea gives birth to a son who was given the Christian name of Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau. Always a benefit to have your blue sheet in front of you. So, again, Toussaint Charbonneau chooses Sacagawea to be the guide for the expedition. She's 16 years of age and pregnant. Fortunately for her, prior to their departure, on February 11th of 1805, Sacagawea gives birth to a son who was given the Christian name of Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau. Now, anybody want to guess what month they're going to depart in? Later. April. They're actually going to have to wait till April because it was such a brutal winter. Well, prior to their departure in April, the Mandan tribal leader, Black Calf, provided 3 important items for the expedition prior to their leaving toward the Pacific. So again, prior to their departure, which will be in April, the tribal leader of the Mandan tribe, Black Calf, is going to provide 3 important items for the expedition. 3 things that they're going to need to take with them. Anybody want to guess what he provided? He didn't give them clothing. That's a good guess, though.
Didn't we give him some grapes or something?
Some what?
Warriors?
No. No. What might he be given them? Yeah.
Horses?
No, they had horses. That's a good guess, though. But what else are they going to need? They've been wintering for 5 months. What probably they don't have any of. Food. He actually sold them food. He sold the expedition food that they had to take with them. Sold the expedition food. Now, what else might they want to take with them that would be hardy, that would keep you, keep you going? It's a type of food. No?
Dried beef.
Meat.
Dried
Meat. What kind of meat? Buffalo. Remember, the Indians are possessive of their hunting grounds, right? So what Black Calf did is he allowed the expedition to hunt buffalo with them when the buffalo hunt came in the spring, and then gave them part of the meat to take with them. So they allowed the expedition to hunt buffalo with them on their annual buffalo hunt, and it supplied quite a bit of buffalo meat for them to take with them. And what else might they want to know, since they have no idea where they're going? A little bit of advice on the route, right? So as far as the Mandans knew, as far as any mapping goes, the Indians gave the expedition some advice on their travels up the Missouri River and what they might run into. Have they been all the way to the Pacific? Absolutely not. But they've been into what we now know as Montana. Okay? So where they're at here, they're in North Dakota. And where is Mandan? There's right here, have it on that. Oh, it's not even here. We're in this area here, though. So they're here, and they know about. Here's the. They know the waterways into Montana. So they're going to give them advice on at least into the eastern border of Montana. Advice on the travel. Okay. So they sell the expedition food. They allow the expedition to hunt buffalo with them and give them some buffalo to take with them, meat, and they give the expedition some advice on their travels up the Missouri River. Now, here's kind of an interesting fact a lot of people don't know. Prior to their departure from the Mandan villages, Lewis actually sent their Keel Boat and 12 men back to St. Louis. And he sent 3 specific items back with them. So of the 45 men he had, he's going to send 12 of them back when the winter clears at the Mandan villages, and these 12 men are going to take the Keel Boat, and they're going to take some other items back as well. So prior to their departure in April, Lewis actually sent their Keel Boat along with 12 men back to St. Louis with the following items. Keel Boat is it's a boat. It's a wooden boat. It's a keel boat. It's like a canoe, only bigger. You know what I mean? Big boat with masts. But it's pretty primitive. I mean, you got to have wind or row it. You know what I mean? But it's like a big canoe, basically. Now, what would you think he sent back on that boat with those 12 guys? Brady, what's something he might send back? What? No. What would he have sent back? He's only gone this far. What would he send back? That's very good. He sent back live specimens. Magpies. And you know what he was really intrigued with, William, that he sent back he had never seen before? Prairie dogs. They had never seen prairie dogs. Remember, Jefferson's kind of looking to see what he bought. He's going to give him a sampling by sending some of these items back to President Jefferson. So he's going to send back live specimens. Some examples would be magpies and especially prairie dogs. Yeah, live.
And would he also send back like maps of what they've already gathered?
Close. Dispatches. Okay, messages back to Jefferson, letting them know what they're doing, where they're at. Not any maps yet. That's a really good guess, Andrew. But he pretty much knows where they're at this point. But he doesn't send maps back, but he sends back lots of information, dispatches, or writings of what they've done thus far. What else might they send besides live specimens of animals? Not close, bones of animals and furs of animals back so that Jefferson and those people can see that too. So not only do they send live specimens such as magpies and prairie dogs, but they also send bones of animals and furs. What else might you send back to show Jefferson what's out there?
Like plant life.
Plants. Very good, Rick. Plants. Send a lot of different plants back. So he sends 12 men back with his keel boat with dispatches or letters, information on what they've done so far. He sends back live specimens such as magpies and prairie dogs, sends back bones and furs of animals, and also sends back some plant samples. So that Jefferson doesn't have to wait forever to find out what's going on. He's going to wait forever now because that's the last dispatches they're going to send back until they return. Okay? All right, that'll take us to our next subtopic, which is the core of discovery through Montana to the Pacific. It would be in your best interest to grab your map I gave you and have it out in front of you that has the dots on it and the labeling of the rivers. Not all of them, but just the one with the dots on it and the labeling of rivers. It would be very, very, very beneficial